Hello and welcome to the Glow Up. I'm Nathan C., and I am pleased to bring you a very special Separated at Birth episode of the Glow Up. Today I'm talking with Dr. Diane Bowser, Senior Manager of Emerging Technologies at Lenovo and founder of CodeReal. Hey, we're Bowsers and XR. We gotta talk.
I'm thinking like Tale of Two Cities, like two Bowsers, two views on XR.
A tale of two Bowsers. It was the best of XR. It was the worst of XR.
You can be the best.
One of the questions I actually was really curious about, right, is if we have two Bowsers on the podcast, like, who actually stole the princess?
Well, I want the car. Okay. I'm just going to be upfront. I want the car.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm the driver.
Dr. Diane, it is so good to see you today. Thanks for joining me on the Glow Up.
Likewise, I'm thrilled to join you and excited to talk about XR technologies today.
Could you introduce yourself and talk to us a little bit about the work that you do with emerging technologies like XR?
Right now, I am a senior manager in emerging technologies and software UX. So I'm about user experience design and empathy for the user. I was very lucky to join Lenovo when they were expanding their UX practice across the company and across different technology lines. Very, very lucky. But I've also been on the founder side of the fence too. And that's how you and I met a little bit, talking about being founders. And I know that we're probably going to discuss a lot of founder things today, but the core thing tying these things together, user experience. That's what I'm about. That's who I am. And that's what I do. In terms of how I got here, it's been a long journey, but the continuous thread is I've always been interested in how things work and making new technologies in the arts and for practical needs too. Just innovation and engineering. So I've always been interested in computing. I got interested in digital recording at the advent of digital recording. So that was great. And that interest stayed with me through my career in philosophy. I was a philosophy professor for 20 years, but I taught about technology and I taught technology and I would cross teach between departments. And sooner or later, the itch to innovate and build things came up again, right? And so teaching was great, but I wanted to leave to build things. I worked with startup founders for about 8 years, starting 6 different companies. And it was a little project I gave myself to work continuously with founders to start companies that mattered and would help change the world. After that period, right, the pandemic hits. And I'm in the middle of a startup collaboration with another founder. And we're trying to convince people to put headsets on their heads and use XR space. And that's really how you and I met, in XR space. So there I am in the startup world trying to get the startup off the ground. And our business model was basically writing grants together with innovators. And so we wrote these grants and we would go out and demo the technology and hope somebody would pick it up or license it. That was a great time until the pandemic hit. And fortunately, when the pandemic hit, big OEM manufacturers like Lenovo benefited in big ways because companies retooled all of their technology and OEM manufacturers wanted to make investments in new technologies. And that's where my involvement with emerging technologies comes in. So Lenovo found me, and I'm so lucky they found me. I'm honored that they found me at the very time they were interested in user experiences for emerging technology, specifically the XR space. And they were building this great device called the Lenovo A3, and it was, to my knowledge, one of the most advanced 3DOF headsets of its day 4 years ago, right? And so 4 years ago, my company went into a holding pattern, CodeReal went into a holding pattern, and I joined Lenovo to build emerging technologies, specifically user experiences for emerging technologies. What excites me about that field is, number one, it's all greenfield. And it's all innovative, right? And so we're defining what XR looks like for the next generation. And the second thing that excites me about it is I can have a big impact at Lenovo because they're a huge OEM. And so that's a very short story about my long path here.
I'm a little bit floored at how you seem to, as the founder, have a very strong instinctual understanding of like your strengths and vision and passion, and can balance this very nicely against success metrics, right? Like actual business impact, so that you're constantly building on learning, but also learning how to grow and build successful business. So, wow, that you were able to do that once, but you also saw a bigger opportunity. So you made that space twice or 6 or 7 times. I'm just floored. I love it. When you're working on so many ideas and engaging in these sort of future spaces, it's got to be hard not to just want to dive in to certain big trends, certain juicy problems. But you've got a lot of responsibilities as the like multi-threaded founder innovator. How do you stay focused on keeping each project, each activity at the level that it needs to be, while also continuing to probe and grow and push the edges?
I'm going to talk about time blocking, right? So the skill is time blocking and really sticking to your time blocks, even when that's not feasible. Like you think, I need more than an hour to do X, right? But I only have an hour. So what's the one thing I can do to push X forward today? And so on that level, it was like progress for each of these projects is like the thickness of a sheet of paper, right? But if you stack a lot of paper, it gets heavy and it has weight. The other thing was knowing when to let go of bad ideas and bad founders. So for CodeReal, I'm working with founders successively, right? I'm pouring all that energy into that founder for a year or for 18 months, and I'm trying to get to know their soul and the soul of the business they're trying to build. And I say that in a very spiritual way, because if everything's not aligned and if they're not trying to create the right experience, we're going to get on the struggle bus together and maybe battle each other. Me and the founder, right? And not just me, like all the other people who are on the bus with us. And it takes a lot of humility to think you can start one company. And here I am, like, I'm going to start 10 in 15 years. So knowing when to let go of bad ideas and bad founders to stay focused, knowing when to let go of struggles and circuses that are not yours, not my monkeys, not my circus, not my dream, and go to the next better focused thing. And then focusing on what does done look like? What does our goal look like? Like, when can we say we made it, or we're done, or we've stood this company up and it's ready to fly on its own? Having really easy metrics. Like, are we making money? Do people take salaries, right? Do we have investors or founders or a runway where we can develop an MVP and really be successful? Let's be realistic. I think that's my number one thing. And then having the courage to say, and the humility to say, I can't accomplish this with you. I need to move to the next project because you would be better served by people who are X than maybe Diane Bowser, right? And so the humility to bow out when you can't make it happen for that person. It's not always them. Sometimes it's the product. Sometimes it's the dream. Sometimes it's the market.
Yeah. Being able to cut your losses or understand when something isn't productive feels really challenging when you're in this founder's mindset, where, especially in emerging tech, where like you might be so new and you're being told to be tenacious, to believe in your idea. I'm curious, and is there a secret to letting go of ideas that you've held really passionately, whose time just isn't ready? And like, how do you socialize and get large global organizations to make those kinds of hard choices, or to approach those kinds of hard choices?
In large global organizations, they have mechanisms for sorting their ideas and prioritizing their research and development, right? So they have quantitative metrics, right? If we do a POC and it doesn't hit market saturation at, say, 2% or whatever the target is, right? They will pull the plug kind of in a mechanical way, right? There's nothing wrong with quantitative measures. There's nothing wrong with saying, if we don't make $2 million on this idea in our POC stage, maybe we don't sink ourselves all the way into the hole. So at the corporate level, they've gone through it so many times, they have some kind of process that they're working with. On the startup level, right? Again, it's all spirit and heart. These people have thrown their lives in. And sometimes they believe harder if you tell them that's impossible or that's not technically achievable. They're all the more determined. Yes. And they put on their capes and they get out there and they want to achieve. Part of it's like nurturing and encouragement. Certainly, I don't want to focus on the negative, right? But the other part of it is having the humility to know you might not understand the market and you might be way out of sync. As an emerging tech person, if there's like a new gadget that comes out, I want to try new gadget, or I want to see people who have tried the new gadget. And then I'm going to decide if I'm going to buy the new gadget and how much interest I have in that, right? My house, my studio here is littered with the gadgets, right? But then do I believe in this founder, and does this founder have a realistic notion of what the market is? And it's like pulling them back from the ecstasy, all puns intended, of the high of being a founder and saying, look, this is your life. You're wrapping your life around this. Let's make sure it's a solid thing. And so there's always those two tensions in qualitative and quantitative metrics for what success looks like or what progress looks like are key to making those calls. They're almost dispassionate at that point.
Thank you for that. You talked about this sort of spiritual connection. You talked about really understanding a founder and their vision. There's some hints at the balance and like real life factors like a salary that like founders need in order to be successful. Can you talk a little bit more about your vision and of a successful young startup? And what are the kinds of things that you're coaching new organizations and these businesses that you work with toward?
The most important thing I have left, okay, isn't my money. It's not anything in this frame. It's my time. It's my time. That's all I have. That's all I own. And if I'm going to give it to another individual, I want to give it out of empathy, love, and kindness, like, period. If we're building a garden together, we're building a piece of tech together, I don't care what we're doing together. That's what I have. That's my most precious gift to you. And I want to make sure our time isn't going to be spent on negative drama and BS. So spiritually, what am I trying to assess? Is this person mature enough to take this idea, this startup idea, from the passion that it is, this great idea and passion, to the long days and nights often we associate with workaholism, right? To make this a reality. Like, can that person, do they have that stamina, right? And what's driving them? And how adaptive are they when the struggle comes? Like, I want to get into a struggle with them right away, a shared struggle, a shared problem that we can solve. Like right away, I want to understand what the pain points are and share a struggle with them so I can understand them.
Do you have an example?
Yeah. So I had a founder, my first founder, and we're going to talk about learning from mistakes, because you're painting it as if I just know how to throw successes out of the bag. And let's be real. The reason I was trying to start 10 companies in 15 years is probably 7 of them would fail. Let's be cold and real. And maybe even 8 or 9 would fail. But that one I own the piece of, that one was worth the time. And I can go back and reinvest in that one. So knowing when to let go, right? And knowing when to struggle with them. That very first struggle within the first few weeks, that kind of tells me, that sets a temperature for the party. What's this party going to be like long term? And how are we going to face challenges together? And then that tells me a lot about what I can give them, what I can help them with, right? How can I spend time with them? And then there's a good, better, best, right? Then I start talking about packages. I can do this for you, but this is a limited package. Or I can do, this is what better looks like, but you have to be willing to do X, Y, and Z. And so things are conditional because that's my time. I'm trading for their business to make them wealthy. I'm not owning the majority of that business. They are, right? And then the best is you're in the right place. You've got the right product. You're the right person for the struggle. You have a pretty good idea already. And what you need is just technical help. You need the technical, like the corporate know-how I can bring for, like, here are your processes. Here's how to get that stuff going. Those are the easiest people. You almost never find the easiest people, though.
That's absolutely fascinating. So often in a client relationship, there is this, like, whatever you want, I'll figure out how to do it. Especially if you are a new founder trying to find your way, bending to everybody's whatever is like the fastest way to get spun out into a million pieces and not gain any traction. But this idea of what is a working relationship like when you set expectations for each other and are clear about like the boundaries and requirements that are required to make certain kinds of changes or to do work together. Like a musical example, it's like saying, I want you to be my drummer, but you can only use keypads. I want your services, but for nothing you're good at. And is so common and like people jump for that. I'm curious, how did you find that sweet spot and like your sort of voice as an entrepreneur, right? Like your zone or that, yeah.
So I came from music and performance arts, right? And I spent my whole childhood and my whole life there. I'm a classically trained musician. I toured with international drum and bugle corps, and I taught music as a side hack all the way through college. And you always have to negotiate those jobs, right? You don't even go to play at the bar till you get paid in advance. So you become like a person used to rejection. What does the arts train you for? Rejection, negotiation, emotional involvement. Because the arts really grab us in a way. I think technology grabs me that way too, because I'm a little weird. But the arts grab us in a very powerful, soulful way. And so being all in that way taught me like what it would be to be a good artist, right? And if you can pull money in your coffers as an artist, which I had to do until I was well through grad school at an advanced age, again, I'm not willing to mention, I was moving along. And then, of course, you look at those successes, right? I look at those wins in the arts and I say, if I could do that with some drumsticks, here we have some technology, some drumsticks and a soldering gun, and I have this. In tech, I think we just have to extend that principle. People are passionate. People want to make good things. People want other people to enjoy and use their things. And so we have to master negotiation. We have to master the art of conflict and adaptation to just unseen and unpredictable market forces that we don't know. When we're planning, we don't know there will be tariffs. We don't know.
This comment alone just warms my heart so much because the reason that I got into tech and the reason why I do so much media is because my first career was in art galleries. And I saw how everybody wanted the help of creatives and artists and how like whole industries flourished on this creative energy. And yet nobody fights for the creators. Creators have to fight for themselves. And if you can make it as an independent artist, you have way more, right? Like I would argue you have way more negotiation, market research, right? Editor's process. You have the skills that it takes to launch a company because you've probably had to start 3 or 4 just to be a musician, right? Like you're a publisher, you're doing your publicity, you're doing your distribution. You've got every single aspect of several businesses that you're running. So those non-traditional founders, those sort of non-technical founders that always get panned when you're talking to like hyper-growth VCs, are often the ones that really know how to find what is an MVP product, what is a lovable experience, what can people enjoy. Shout out to creative and non-technical founders. You probably already have the skill to go make something happen and just need to put it into a new wrapper. I think it's time to get to one of my favorite questions. And the show is called The Glow Up, right? Which is a notable transformation, a rebirth, a revitalization of sorts. So I used to talk about 6-month goals, short-term goals. What's your big audacious goal for the work that you're doing in immersive technologies?
My big audacious goal at the corporate level is to skill up my team and help us integrate new AI technologies into XR in healthy ways that respect our users. It's really simple. And what do I mean by respect our users? Their privacy, their data, and their trust and confidence that Lenovo would never do anything weird with their data or share their data, and make an experience that helps them save time and productivity. That's simple. In a corporate way, that's really simple. You can do that and it's measurable. On the CodeReal side, right? On this building company side, this is a lifelong project. I realized it's not just 15 years long. It might go on longer. And my goal there is to encourage everyone. I mean, this isn't going to be an ageist thing, but I want to bring the next two generations along. I want the millennials and the Zs and even the alphas. I want them to think about their lives and careers as a series of businesses they're going to make and a series of projects they're going to do. And I want them to bring their entire selves to the table. So the dance class and the music background and the sports background and whatever they have, I want them to bring all of it to the creative table and make companies. And I want them to make their own companies. I think we need a world that's more dynamic, that's more based on small and medium-sized businesses. And I want them to feel the freedom that I can. So I'm encouraging people, especially non-technical people, you don't have to be technical. Maybe the AI is going to take care of a lot of the technical stuff in the future, maybe. And like you said, people who have had resiliency in the arts or resiliency in sports or resiliency in some performance-oriented occupation, often they know how to survive and they know what people need, maybe in their particular niche or maybe in another niche where they have a hobby. And so we shouldn't rule out non-technical founders. We should pair them and introduce them to the technical people of the world and make companies together. So I want to glow up this notion of innovation.
Heck yeah. I'm always so inspired when my guests bring a big goal. And the great thing about big goals, right, is even on your path to them, you can make some outstanding contributions. Oh, there's so many things that I want to dive into. The idea of data and privacy in a world of wearables is one of the most hot button issues that I've seen all year in what we've been putting out in the Glow Up. Charlie Fink had some comments recently about wearables that just showed me how much people are really concerned about privacy. The images come to mind when you hear wearable technology. People think about it as like body tracking. They think about it as microchips and COVID vaccines. Wearables spawns a whole range of exposure and opinion.
Lenovo has this reputation. Think about the ThinkPad. You see it everywhere. And so they have a great reputation. They're the number one PC maker in the world, right? And so companies clearly trust them. And so the goal of my work there is to continue that. Just continue that and make them feel good in wearables and safe in wearables. And if they're going to adapt wearables into their tech stream, they know that it comes from the same company that built that ThinkPad. We respect you and we respect your data. That to me is the biggest thing I could do in my role at Lenovo as we move forward with emerging technologies. In the world, I want my founders to be resilient and adaptive. I want them to abandon bad ideas and go to good ideas. And I want them to be courageous and brave because coming from the arts, right? 3,000 people will tell you no. And one will tell you yes. And that's the one you're looking for. And that to me is resilience.
This idea of supporting Gen Alphas and Zs in all of their interests and skills, I think is just outstanding. And there's a bit of a theory that I've been working on about how a lot of business tools, you can tell the influence of millennials and Zs who are hardcore gamers all their lives, because so much of software is turning into game mechanics, right? The price for most like business softwares has gone from hundreds and thousands of dollars a month to $10, $15 video game starter pack costs. The way that we use AI services and buy them and quantify them is in tokens. We're building avatars and NPCs to guide us through worlds like this. Everything that we're doing is built on these game mechanics. And I can tell you, my kids have spent more than tens of thousands of hours in world learning game theory, understanding resources, building strategy to hit goals faster, learning where investment works, where it's not worth it, right? Like their understanding of this capitalist economics and like how to engage and like direct attention is like innate at this point.
That's a beautiful tie-in. That is it. They're learning and they're practicing and they're getting their 10,000 hours of business experience playing. What is that? It's not Animal Farm. What was it called?
Oh, Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
That's where we started.
I heard my son and his friends arguing about who had to go to work and who had to pay the mortgage. And I was like, this sounds too much like adult life. Why are you playing this? But like you said, they're learning all about capitalism. And that's like a capitalism little engine for playtime. And then showing them how they can turn that into real money in the real world. That's where two Bowsers making money in XR makes a lot of sense.
Love it. Dr. Diane, we always like to make time for a community spotlight or a shout out for groups doing something of impact or of good that you see in the world. Is there anybody that you'd like to share a little spotlight with?
Sure. I'd like to share my spotlight with the Virtual World Society that you well know from AWE and Dr. Tom Furness, who has given his retirement. And I want to stress, he gave his whole career to building VR. He's considered one of the fathers of VR, works for NASA. People who are interested, look him up. University of Washington. Just an incredible, generous figure in XR. He comes to AWE every year, again, out of retirement to interact with the audience and grow the community. I want to continue that spirit. And I want to give the big shout out to the Virtual World Society because they're bringing this technology to the very group of people I'm interested in helping in the CodeReal kinds of projects, right? The startups. Start up the startups and make an ecosystem. And so the Virtual World Society distributes that technology. And I would encourage anyone who listens to this podcast and wants to be a member of that society and make a contribution to get out there and do it.
Oh my gosh, big shout out to everybody over there at Virtual World Society. Doing fantastic work. Is there anything that you're looking for? Do you have a call to action for the Glow Up audience?
I do. I want the Glow Up audience to take a look at the ecosystems you're working in right now and look for Greenfield. I want you to look for Greenfield. We're in a very early stage. Like the internet is 30 years old, right? Arguably, the internet is just becoming an adult. Our field in XR is still a teenager time. And you and I meet in this generative conference environment every year. And so for the Glow Up audience, I want you to look at these companies and look at what they're doing well. Companies like Niantic, who have big goals like mapping the world. Companies like Snap, who are putting wearables on your face. And I want to see if you can find a place for the things that you care about. The things that you care about. What would you do in that world to show people the things that you care about, the products you care about, the people you care about, the causes you care about? We're going to need an integrated world that's not just products. It's going to be products and causes and projects that we do together.
I love it. It's all connected.
My case study, and again, I'm going to draw on AWE, our shared experience, is the women in XR. When you look at the companies that the women in XR, that's another shout out. I know I got in two
XR
words.
Women. Yes.
2 words.
Women is amazing.
But when you look at the companies that the members of that organization are designing, they really took that advice, right? They really went to spaces that were underserved and brought services and technology and causes to the table that really need to be addressed. So I just want to shout out and glow up all of these things that are growing up in our industry at the teenage level, and let us take them. Let us spend the next decade taking them to a mature level.
Oh my goodness. One last question is just how can people follow up and learn more if they want to be connected with the work that you're doing?
So if they want to be connected with the work and they're thinking about companies, then connect with me through CodeReal.io or LinkedIn, right? I'm Dr. Diane Bowser on LinkedIn. So I'm really easy to find. CodeReal is CodeReal.io. But again, this isn't just a baseless self-promotion. Lenovo's doing a lot of good work in R&D. And I want people to think about careers in technology and exploring careers that they didn't think were open to them. I want a diverse technology community building the next generation. And I want us to think about how we can help and collaborate and coordinate with each other. So if you want to find me, I'm easily findable on LinkedIn. I'm findable at Lenovo and at CodeReal.io.
Amazing. We'll find Dr. Diane Bowser in the Princess Peach, I think, pink car when we're playing Mario Kart. Dr. Diane, it has been such a pleasure to chat with you today. I love that we bonded over some very light level things about being Bowsers in XR, but that today we were able to explore such a wide variety of ideas and innovation. And I love this comparison of how small startups and new ideas can grow and take root, and how large corporations are approaching similar ideas. And this thing that you pointed to both of them, that like helping those organizations remember and live the values that they've already established, is like one of those tools that you use in both cases. Just warms my heart endlessly. And I can't wait to see the next 10 startups support working with millennials and Zs and As to develop this next generation of entrepreneurs, and almost like the personal entrepreneurial layer to the internet. So many big ideas there. Thank you for joining me on the Glow Up. It's been a blast.
It was my honor to join you. I deeply admire the work that you've done for AWE, and I just want to give a shout out to that too, because you're very humble. And maybe a lot of people wouldn't know, but we met because of all the good work you did there. And we're really creating a community of practitioners, right? So the more of us that want to grow businesses, this is how we get together in XR and we make money together, right? We figure out our common interests and we figure out who has the good ideas. And with all of our collective experience in this space, I think we can make a big impact over the next decade. I hope it looks better and nothing like it does today, 10 years from now. I hope wearables are just so light, we don't even think about them, like a pin on my little shawl.
Oh, it's going to be a great future, especially if the Bowsers have anything to say about it.
Right.
Dr. Diane Bowser, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.